So far, unfortunately, but necessarily, we haven't painted a very pretty picture of what is going on in our own heads, of our own state of mind. We've learned that we are designed to not focus, and that's the one thing we actually need to have going for us to ensure that we can achieve our goals. We've learned that we are designed to be stressed, and not only does that get in the way of us achieving our objectives, of even getting through the day in a relatively easy manner, it's actually slowly killing us. Now, if you put those two things together, you will begin to realize that what we've actually learned at this stage is that we have our own very unique perspective on reality. My reality is markedly different from your reality, and that's not just because I'm sitting here looking out at the sunshine in the French Alps. My reality is related to how my mind automatically makes sense of what is going on around me at this moment in time. In this video, we're going to dissect that statement so that we can understand how we create our own version of reality. Now, I'm not exaggerating when I make that statement that we create our own version of reality. The first problem that we have is that we can only perceive what we expect to perceive. Now, that is a slightly strange statement, because effectively what I'm saying to you is that your expectation is actually dictating your ability to understand what is going on. In fact, research has shown that we are perceptually blinded by our expectations. When you finish watching this video, I want you to Google the invisible gorilla. You may have heard of this experiment already. It comes from the 1970s, I think, and it is a very basic psychological experiment in determining the extent to which we are blind to what is actually going on before our very eyes. Essentially, in summary, even if you don't Google it, a group of psychology students in an experiment were shown a video whereby a number of students were throwing a basketball to each other, and the people watching the video were asked to count the number of passes. In the middle of the video was standing another student dressed in a gorilla outfit, waving at the camera. For 11 of the 20 seconds of the video, this guy was standing there waving in front of the camera, in front of the students passing the basketball around behind him. The vast majority of people, now it varies between about 67% and 80%, the vast majority of the people watching this video failed to see the gorilla. There's a load of research in relation to this. For example, one of the key and most interesting pieces of research in relation to our inability to perceive is a whole body of research in the United Kingdom with regard to what is known as looked but failed to see accidents. This relates to the study of people crashing into yellow and blue conspicuously painted police cars parked on the side of motorways. Because people don't expect them to be there, they actually cannot see them. The interesting thing about recent research in relation to perceptual blindness, as it is called, is that if you were in an experiment with a set of electrodes on your head monitoring what was going on in your brain, and somebody showed you a picture that you didn't expect to see, the visual cortex of your brain would fire up. In other words, your brain is actually seeing it, but you are not processing it because you didn't expect it to be there. So that's the first point I would make in relation to how we create our own reality. We only perceive what we expect to perceive. And as you will begin to have understood as we explored categorization and automaticity in video number 2, our expectations are largely learned when we were children. We'll come back to that in the next video. For now, it is important to realize that my expectations dictate whether or not I can perceive something that is happening now. By definition, therefore, I can only achieve what I expect to achieve. And that has an enormous impact on the extent to which people don't know how to set their goals in a way that actually encourages the subconscious mind to expect their goals coming about. But we'll come back to that later in this video series too. For now, I want to give you a really simple example of how we make sense, or as it turns out, nonsense of reality. Say you and I work together on an everyday basis, and one day you have a big and important meeting to attend, so you come in all dressed up in a beautiful shirt and tie. And I say to you, passing in the corridor, "That's a lovely tie you're wearing." Now those few words that I have just said to you are completely raw data to your auditory system. The words come into your ears, but "that's a nice tie you're wearing" are meaningless until I make sense of those words. The process that I go through to make sense of those words is known in psychology as cognitive appraisal. The first thing I will do is evaluate those words depending upon the mood I am in. Now, research tells us that when we wake up in the morning, we're more likely to be negatively predisposed than positively predisposed. Bundles of research over the years tells us that we're more likely to pick negative thoughts to give our attention to than positive thoughts. The point I'm making is that if you don't do something about what state of mind you're in first thing in the morning, you're off on the wrong foot, and you're likely to be in the kind of mood that is not ideal to what it is you have to achieve during the course of the day. So the first piece of ingredient that I will bring to trying to make sense of the simple phrase, "that's a nice tie you're wearing," is my mood. Now, wait for this, because this is bizarre, but this is how the normal mind works. My mood dictates which thoughts I choose, and the thoughts I choose dictate my mood. It's a circular process. We keep going around in circles in our own little version of Groundhog Day. It's the only way I can put it. So the first thing that I will bring to evaluating "that's a nice tie you're wearing" is my mood. The second thing I will bring to it is what I think of you. Now, I never met you, because as we discovered in an earlier video in relation to categorization, when I met you for the first time, within 4 seconds, I put you in a box. So I don't know who you are. I think I know who you are, but I am going to evaluate what you've just said on the basis of my mood and who I think you are. It's a little more complicated and a little more divorced from reality than that, unfortunately, because as we'll discover in the next video, I actually have some kind of strange notion as to who I think I am. My personality, my conceptual self. So, just listen for a moment, because we're actually a few steps removed from reality. Who I think I am thinks you are will be added to the mix of my mood to make sense of the few words, "that's a nice tie you're wearing." In going through that convoluted process that has nothing to do with reality, I will either evaluate those few words to have been a compliment or an insult. I may think that you're the kind of person that constantly goes around taking the piss out of people, and that you're one of these people who is constantly insulting people. It'll either be evaluated, nothing to do with what's been said, but what I think's been said by who I think said it, what has been said either as a compliment or an insult, or probably somewhere in between the two. I will automatically react to, say, an insult with a grunt, or a compliment with a few nice words, and the consequence of that is your day will get better or worse, and my day will get better or worse. But the process that has just happened has nothing at all to do with the reality of the here and now. You and I have only one interface with the outside world, your body. Your body only has 5 mechanisms for interfacing with the outside world. You see, feel, hear, smell, or taste. But when we do see, feel, hear, smell, or taste, that incoming data is raw data until we make sense of it. And because we make sense of it based on our preconceived ideas about the world and how it works, the categorizations that we built between our 2nd and 3rd birthdays, we generally make nonsense of the here and now. We generally perceive a reality that isn't there, and therefore, through our automatic reaction to what we think is not there, create a reality that isn't there either. Now, this is madness, but this is how, in evolutionary times, we didn't have to burden our mind unnecessarily to ensure that we simply made it through the day. But as we said in video number 1, making it through the day in the complex lives we now lead in the 21st century is simply not good enough.